All right, here we go. It's time for the nose. And the best laid plans. Actually, our plans weren't even all that well laid to begin with. We were thinking about maybe speed dating through about 7 topics. And then yesterday, Al Franken happened and everything became very different. I have to say that on Saturday night, and this is not a plug because I don't think you can get tickets anymore, but on Saturday night, I'm going to be on stage with the comedians Signataro, Mark Maron, and Fred Armisen. And I mean, Louis C.K. was like a big enough thing to talk about. Now, Al Franken, of course, comes out of the same world of SNL comedy. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. We hope we can get to some other topics, but the Franken stuff is very big. That's where we'll begin. And we will begin with Tanisha Dugan, producing associate at TheaterWorks, Jacques Lamar, senior project manager at Buzz Engine, and Kate Rushin, a teaching artist. By the way, that's the official trademark pronunciation of Buzz Engine. You're supposed to say Buzz Engine. Kate Rushin is a teaching artist for the Connecticut Office of the Arts and a Pushcart Prize-nominated poet. So towards the end, I don't know. I mean, initially we were going to talk about Blake Shelton as the sexiest man. We still might. I think Jacques is ready and willing, and we may talk about the Da Vinci sale and some other stuff as well. We got a list of things, but we do have to begin with Al Franken. If you have been unconscious for the last 24 hours, Al Franken is, of course, a U.S. senator. He now has been accused of an incident in 2006. He was on a USO tour. A woman who was on that tour, is sort of a TV news-ish personality, I think, accused him of having a skit in which he would be kissing her on stage, and then he apparently, according to her, insisted that they practice the kiss. She didn't want to do that. He kept insisting. He kept pressing. Finally, I think in the darkness off stage, he tried to practice the kiss and stuck his tongue down her throat. I have to say, I stood in the offstage darkness with Al Franken last August at the Schubert, and he tried no such thing. And now I'm feeling like, what? I don't have it. And also there's also a photo in which she appears to be asleep. He is in a very stagey way spreading his hands out across her bevested breasts as if he's groping her in his sleep. I mean, this is obviously sort of a comic thing, but it's also kind of creepy. There things stand, although there have been other developments as well. I should say his accuser does not think that Al Franken should resign. On the other hand, she has pressed this matter pretty hard, and there's an ethics investigation about to unfold and all kinds of other stuff as well. And, of course, this also does not happen in a vacuum. We've had days and days and weeks of all this kind of stuff. Last week it was Louis C.K., now it's this, and there's been lots of other things involving, you know this story. So I'm trying to figure out where to begin and how to begin. And I guess maybe I'm going to ask you to sort of talk a little bit about where this moves the needle on your either outrage or concern meters. Kate, I'll start with you. I mean, how big a story is Al Franken to you? Granting the factor that I think that both you and Tanisha said that you're getting a little weary of this subject in general.
Well, I was listening to conservative talk radio to hear what they had to say about it. And, of course, they were making it about a Democrat, a Republican, or a liberal conservative split. And I'm in my car and I'm shouting, no, it's about power against the less powerful. And generally speaking, this is a powerful man taking advantage of a woman that he saw as less powerful. So that's where I'm coming from. And I'm not tired of talking about it. I don't think we've talked about it enough at all levels of our society and interaction.
Right. I mean, I'm glad you say all levels, too, because one thing I keep saying to people is that the life of a cocktail waitress has not changed that much over the last 5 weeks or over the last 30 years. I mean, it's just kind of like priced into like a lot of what they have to deal with. I'm not just them either, but just I'm using that example. Well, Jacques, to Kate's point, though, one thing you and I think have both experienced on social media where there's been a lot of activity about this is that in many cases, and I think you might have had a slightly different experience, but one thing that I've been seeing a lot is that people who skew Democratic or liberal or however they might want to self-identify, they're having a lot of trouble with this story. They're trying to find ways in which it might be different from certain other stories, especially the Roy Moore story. They're making excuses. I don't know. I mean, what has been your experience?
Well, yesterday I just simply put as a status update, why Al Franken, why? And not necessarily why Al Franken, but why did you do this, Al Franken? Because at least, with the photo, there's a certain amount of not necessarily incontrovertible evidence, but I mean it's obviously something that was done in poor taste and questionable judgment. But so many people were. I was really shocked at people immediately dismissing it as a quote unquote nothing burger, and people saying, this is going too far. This witch hunt. That there were people who were parsing whether or not he's actually touching her breasts in the photo, and if that makes a difference. And then I was starting getting into it with a friend on whether or not his statement was a dodge.
Well, there's two. We should say there's two statements. So
Yeah.
there was like a 3-sentence statement issued pretty much right away, which seemed wholly insufficient. He just said, "I certainly remember this very differently from the way that she does. As far as the picture goes, it was a joke. It was a bad joke, and that was like all he had to say." And then the second statement, which was many, many sentences long and had a lot in it. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, well, what was fascinating to me was how many women were coming to his defense, and no one likes to be called a hypocrite, and I'm not using that word while implying it. That if this was a conservative figure. Would we be so willing as liberals or Democrats or independents to say that this is a nothing burger? And, if you look at a lot of these things, I mean, with Louis C.K. and Harvey Weinstein, there was stuff out there, saying that this is going on or whatever, but it took some tipping point for multiple women to come, forward simultaneously and be taken seriously. With Kevin Spacey, it just took Anthony Rapp giving one interview for the floodgates to open. There's already a second allegation that's, I guess, getting ready to be made against Al Franken, and I don't know much about that, but to me, it was interesting how suddenly, because this is a Democratic senator and one who's very beloved by a lot of liberals like myself, that suddenly it's like, oh, wait. Maybe her allegations don't need to be taken quite as seriously, or maybe it wasn't as egregious as what Roy Moore has been accused of. So anyway, it was interesting to see how my why Al Franken why turned into a deluge of not only comments but people fighting with each other.
Right. There's been a lot of fighting on my social media feed too, and it kind of began. There were a couple of pieces this week about Bill Clinton. The New York Times ran several pieces this week, one column, one front page article, basically saying, when you look back at Bill Clinton in the late 1990s, there were women coming forwards, Kathleen Wiley, Juanita Broderick, and Paula Jones, of course, herself, who were telling stories that sounded very Weinstein-like, and in the case of Juanita Broderick, worse, I think, than anything that has been alleged against Harvey Weinstein. And that, and I was the House liberal on a, otherwise conservative radio show. I spent a lot of time kind of batting some of this stuff away on Clinton's behalf. I mean, some of it was sort of genuinely real and appalling, some of the Monica Lewinsky stuff, but the other stuff, I don't think I really took these women particularly seriously. It was like you almost couldn't afford to take them seriously. And that's a problem, Tanisha, right? When you sort of think about the way the fight is and how vicious the fight is, the internecine fight between parties, there's this sense that people have a knee-jerk reaction. We can't lose this guy, We can't sacrifice Al Franken. And so I think they do the thing that Jacques' talking about.
Yeah, I guess my weariness in response to what you've just said.
Yeah, you were weary, Kate wasn't. I got it wrong.
It's okay.
I thought you were both weary.
We're all weary.
Yeah.
Is essentially that you have to separate out the behavior from the things that people do. This is absolutely about power, and it is baked into the cake of how we operate, which is why it's difficult to say, but I love Al Franken. I love Bill Cosby's work. I love so on and so forth. But there's not a woman I know of that hasn't been a victim of some kind of sexual advance that they did not want. So that to me indicates that it's about masculinity and the way in which it feels the norm to do these things. And so my weariness, I think, comes from the fact that if we were all quite honest, most men have probably done something, maybe not to the extreme of a Roy Moore or a Kevin Spacey or a Harvey Weinstein or a Bill Clinton, but have found themselves in situations where they've perpetrated this kind of act unknowingly, because I think it's subconsciously baked into what it means to be a man. And so that's where my weariness comes from, that the conversation is about these moments that are highlighted because a deluge of women, I love that word, come forward and say, yes, me too. But the truth of the matter is if we go across the entire societal spectra, it's there and it happens on a subway car, and it happens on a date, and it happens between husbands and wives, because it is about knowing the nuance of a moment and when and how to use your power and when it is not appropriate and when it is. I'm interested if the Fred Armisen conversation isn't sold out, I suspect folks should buy the ticket, because those rumblings about him have been going on for years as well. And it'll be interesting to watch him dance if you have a conversation about Al Franken.
Oh, although different kind of rumblings.
I make the argument that they're one and the same, because essentially we're talking about using your power as a man to make someone less powerful feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And if we widen the conversation to that, we can start to sort of take on these structural things that we've gone through when we talk about race, when we talk about gender, when we talk about sexuality, that underpins, why I think these things are coming out in the way that they're coming out.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think, because I was intrigued that both a male friend and a female friend were trying to sort of brush aside the Louis C.K. situation, because he said, well, mind if I take out my junk, and that the women stayed in some instances, and they were like, well, the women made the choice to stay instead of saying no or walking out or what have you. And my initial take, and I'm not coming at this from the standpoint of being a male or the power dynamic, is these were in professional contexts. So it's not like I met this woman in a bar and then asked her if she would come up to my hotel room and said, mind if I take out my junk while I stare at you. These were women who all had a professional relationship. And like with Al Franken, he was on a USO tour with a woman who was there to do her job. And part of this job may have been participating in a skit, but she was, this is part of what bothers me about it. There's a lot that bothers me about it. But I think, that these people who are abusing their power are doing it oftentimes in a professional context. And that adds that to me, that people can't see that as folded into this. You know, if I walked up to someone in the office and did what Al Franken is accused of doing, I would expect to lose my job.
Right. And one thing that I've said last Monday was one of the differences between the entertainment world and to a degree the world of electoral politics in most of the rest of the world is in most of the rest of the world we get training in all this stuff because, in fact, companies cannot, whether they're nonprofit or profit, they cannot afford the judgments that they've had. Post-Chattanooga forklift case, everybody started to get training because not because companies are wonderful, but because they don't want to get litigated against and have gigantic judgments. And that's – but, so, Kate, this also raises – well, go ahead. You got something to say?
I'm struck by the fact that some of the people we're talking about are comedians. I'm thinking about the Al Franken photo, and clearly he meant that to be a joke. And I'm sitting here remembering and thinking about any number of incidents that have been covered up as jokes from Al Franken all the way down to third grade, and that women are supposed to just accept it. And then the whole thing turns on women. Oh, you're not being a good sport, or you're being too serious. And I'm also thinking about, what you were saying that someone said to you, Jacques, about the women stayed. And what I think about in those situations, judging by my own responses to these kinds of power plays, is that you're not staying, you're stunned, you're speechless, you're stuck for the moment, whether it's stuck momentarily because of the situation you're in, or that you're stuck for years like Anita Hill because it's your job and your career.
Right. The two women comedians in Aspen who had the experience with Louis C.K. described themselves as kind of screaming and laughing at the same time. And I do think one thing that's happened in 2017, one thing that maybe has changed, at least with these highly public things, although as Tanisha says, and I think we all agree, a lot of these things happen in a much less public way and just aren't really refereed by public opinion the way these are. But to the extent that these things can be refereed by public opinion, I think we're saying, A, how you reacted to that particular moment is no longer any kind of judgment against you. You could be stunned. You could not know what else to do. The fact that you waited a really long time to talk about it cannot be held against you or used to undermine your charges. The charges against Roy Moore date back mostly to 1977. That's 40 years. But I think there's sort of a sense, okay, so
really
it's 40 years.
About it.
Yeah, really we're talking about it. But so what? And on and on. Ways that these things were kind of thrown aside in the past have now been switched around. But I think also that question, one of the things that makes Franken so interesting is he has occupied so many different worlds, right? So he comes out of comedy, but by 1995, his career as sort of a full-time professional comedian is over. And he becomes this sort of he really becomes sort of a liberal Bill O'Reilly, right? He goes on Air America. He writes books that are definitely very political. Rush Limbaugh is a big fat idiot and stuff like that. He becomes this kind of negative image of posturing right-wing jerks. And that's kind of who he is when this USO thing goes down, is he's not really a comedian so much anymore, although he hasn't given up on his entertainment career. But he's a little bit more of a political commentator with an entertainment background. And then he goes from there to being a U.S. senator. And I just quickly will say, and I don't mean to talk so much, but I did have spent half a day with this man, and I read his damn book, his new book, which is essentially a campaign biography. And a lot of it, and I'd love to get your reactions to all of this because all of you come at this from kind of interesting angles. A lot of that book is almost obsessively about his struggle dealing with things that he wrote and said while he was doing pretty transgressive comedy, and how those things were extracted by his opponents, both in Democratic primaries and general elections in Minnesota. Look what he said here, and he would have to explain, no, I was doing comedy at the time. I was living a very different kind of life. My career was really different. The fact that you can find this really weird quote, from an essay I wrote in Playboy or something, I didn't mean the same thing. And he's almost obsessively concerned with that question. But, Kate, this isn't something that he wrote or said in the furtherance of comedy. This is some I mean, I guess his argument would be, well, it was a kind of comedy skit, and maybe she didn't really understand all the valences. Shaking her head. Not
He's still a powerful Harvard guy who at Harvard, I assume, would have been in a particular realm of comedy theater while he was there, because that's kind of the pipeline to Saturday Night Live. And, basically he can say and do anything he wanted to. In that context, and it seems like with this situation with the actress in the USO situation, he just felt like he could do anything he wanted to do.
It's like, I don't think we can negate the fact that it's environmental, and I'm sure he's got a crew of men that he was with then doing that behavior, that supported that behavior, and probably did it too. But there's also a piece of this, as an actor, knowing like the things that you do in pursuit of the human experience that puts you into these awkward positions. And it wasn't until recently that I've seen before rehearsal an actor saying, okay, so I'm gonna actually kiss you now, as opposed to in, the first part of my career when you would just jump in. And that would not be perceived as an assault, right? Because it's part of the work that we do. And there's a little bit of that, not to, negate Frank, this woman's experience or to give Franken a pass. But there's a little bit of that in this situation for me too, because there is that awkward moment where strangers are being asked to do something intimate that is just wholly outside of the realm of most human beings' existences. And it is fraught with discomfort because it is not organic or innate or normal or natural.
I would say the one thing that I would push back on regarding that is she's not an actor. She was a model, and
But she was doing a sketch, right? No.
Yeah, well, he was asking her to do a sketch.
But it was a USO tour, and she was there to MC the tour, and he was there to be
you.
entertainment, and almost certainly he wrote the script, I'm assuming, which would put him in a situation of being able to do to kiss her.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, to back up, is these are allegations. The photo is what it is. I found his statement. I was getting into it with someone on Facebook about whether or not it was a non-apology. And this, I think it's interesting because like Kevin Spacey came out with his statement and everyone attacked his statement. And then Louis C.K. came out with a better statement, but it wasn't a good enough statement. And I'm looking at Al Franken's statement and saying, not sure about this statement.
But there's nothing to say. It's about doing, and it's about a collective doing.
Well, I think there is something to say, as in, I did it, or I'm being falsely accused. Kevin Spacey did the, I'm gay and was drunk at the time, not really owning this. And Louis C.K., said, yes, I did this.
And
but
they admired me.
And didn't really apologize in a certain sense. And I think with Al Franken, he has come out and said, that I recall this differently, but women should be believed.
Yeah, I guess the statements to me are self-serving and it doesn't push the needle forward, which I think is some of the conversation we're trying to have. And it's like, so how do you push the needle forward? The statements don't do that for me in any way. And in some ways, I would rather them not give a statement because it is all covering to me.
Yeah.
But
if he came out and said, yes, I did this. I mean, Louis C.K. said, yes, I did this, but didn't. And
like,
should have put a period on it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, part of it is owning your behavior. Beyond perpetrating the behavior, but owning your behavior and owning the consequences for that behavior. And I find it fascinating that he's, says, yes, I want an investigation into my own behavior. and it's going to end up being a he said, she said. Colin, you're laughing, but it's sort of
Also,
like
I like myself followed.
yeah. I mean, it's
Put a
like,
tail on me, okay?
I appreciate that you want to investigate yourself, but
That is in its heart is my point, right?
yeah, but I mean, the thing
That it
is,
becomes about
you
the
could save a
abuser,
lot
not
of
the
time.
abused.
You could save a lot of time, at least as a starting point, and say, yes, I did this, or no, I didn't do it.
We're going to take a break here, and then if you guys want to keep talking about this when we come back, we can, or we can switch to later things. I have to tell one quick story here because Tanisha induced a comedy flashback in me. So this is like decades and decades ago.
You're welcome.
I'm watching The Tonight Show. And they've got one of their pathetic little sketches, and it involved an actress, and Jacques might even remember her name. I think her name was Edie Williams. She was whoever was the leading lady in a lot of softcore Russ Meyer.
Edie Williams.
Edie Williams. So Edie Williams is this is the kind of thing I just know Jacques would have an encyclopedic grasp of.
Beyond
so anyway.
the Valley of the Dolls,
Yeah,
one of my
there we go.
favorite movies.
So Edie Williams is on, and they've got a sketch, and it's Johnny and some other comedian, I can't remember who, and Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis is on the show, and you can sort of tell that Jerry Lewis hadn't even bothered to go to rehearsal. But this sketch involved each of the men kissing Edie Williams passionately with some comic payoff at the end. And yeah, this is to your point, Tanisha. Except that what happened was, so Johnny does this, and whoever else does this, and it comes to Jerry's turn to go through this fake door and kiss Edie Williams passionately, and he sort of looks around, and they're all looking at him, and he goes, "I'm not going to kiss that lady. I'm a married Jewish person," which got a huge laugh, and which was not the sketch at all. And then when he kind of got over to the couch, he said, "I've actually sort of made a decision. I am a married guy, and I'm not going to do things like that. I'm not going to make out with some woman I don't know for the purpose of getting a laugh." And this was like 35
And getting
years ago or
off.
something.
I mean, let's be real.
Right.
I mean, that's
May I say
Yeah.
one
Kissing
thing that it doesn't really fit, but I just have to say this because it makes me nuts. I'm a poet. I'm about the word. And it makes me nuts that media people, broadcasters, writers are using the term that Roy Moore and his supporters are using. And I just want to say that 30-something, 20-something-year-old guys preying on 14-year-olds and teenagers is not dating. That is not dating.
I think we can all agree with that.
But our young people need to hear that
Yeah.
too.
Riz, pay attention, young people. All right, we have to take a little break. When we come back, we could still be talking about this if that is the will of the panel. We also could be talking about Blake Shelton, who so far is not implicated in this story at all. All right, we are back with the nose. In the studio with me are Tanisha Dugan and Kate Rushin and Jacques Lamar and Jonathan. I'm sorry to laugh at this because I know none of this stuff is funny, but Jonathan McNichol just texted me that there's a Washington Post story saying that TED Talks empire has been grappling with sexual harassment. And I'm just sort of thinking, it's like, first of all, how do they even kiss with those Madonna mics on? I mean, don't they get in the way or something? And it's also like, I don't know. Like if you really wanted to have random sex with somebody, just the TED Talk seems like such a bad idea. But anyway.
My wireless mic got connected to hers,
Exactly. I just
and
sort of
our
feel
faces crashed.
you guys are awful.
remember how they used to say that Washington, D.C. was Hollywood for ugly people? Like, what are the TED Talks? Well, anyway.
There are some sexy people that walk through TED Talks.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so
Man.
I just had to make fun of the TED Talks for a second. All right, so we are switching gears here a little bit, and I feel
On
like
the subject of sexy people.
on the subject of sexy people. And so I feel as though Jacques really does have to lead us into battle on this one. Because I'm not really sure I even understand all the contours of this. And Kate's doing some on-site research right now. It's an unfolding story. But we know that
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. But we do know that Blake Shelton has been named the sexiest man alive. That's the title, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so
I would
People magazine.
once again had the title snatched from me at the last minute.
But there is there was sort of an immediate backlash, right? Like he's like the sexiest guy at Home Depot, maybe, or something. I think was one of the typical lines,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I say very rarely do I ever agree with People Magazine's choice for sexiest man alive, and he's like
Milk
sexy
toast.
average guy. I mean, he's a guy that I'd be like, oh, he's handsome. I don't know that I'd qualify him as sexy. Maybe Gwen Stefani adds to
Makes
his
him sexy. I think that may be true. He's like sexy adjacent.
He is. It's sexy by osmosis. Yeah. Because I think that she's legit sexy, and I don't swing that way. But I.
Well, I mean, we could maybe
The
begin by
list is
saying,
always baffling.
should there ever be I mean, given the world that we're in right now, I mean, you sort of wonder whether sexiest man alive, I don't know, is like even a useful thing for anybody to
I
be
mean,
doing.
it's fun. I mean,
fun,
the
right?
truth
There you
of the matter, I would love if we had spent today talking about Serena Williams and Alexis Ohanian, Reddit guy, and they're getting married yesterday, because I just love that stuff, and I think it is so necessary to talk about the fluff. And so I appreciate people, especially considering some of their cover stories, and I love to stand in the grocery store line, because sometimes people doing it themselves is longer than waiting for a real person to check you out. And so I like to go through. But he's just a sad choice, because he's not particularly eye candy. He's kind of funny on The Voice, but I do feel like he is sort of middle of the road, safe, sexy choice, and that's probably why they landed there. He's like a non-controversial sexy choice.
I guess, I see the choice of Blake Shelton as sexiest man alive in the age of Trump. He's a country guy, and I just heard that he had some problematic tweets, and which I was trying to find
Everyone has problematic
some
tweets.
of his problematic
Life
tweets
is
on
problematic
Jezebel and
tweets.
other sites.
Yeah, let me see if I can help here. Shelton likes to get on Twitter, presumably after a few SoCos, and make some hilarious jokes about homosexuals, including one that suggested he'd leave any gay man who touches him beaten, bleeding, and heaving, that attracted the condemnation from GLAAD. He also wrote some stuff about people needing to, quote, learn some English so I would at least know what he's planning to bomb, unquote, or that they could drive his airport shuttle bus. And one time he joked about his fantasies involving a 16-year-old Dakota Fanning. Boom, Roy Moore connection made.
I mean, it confirms.
Like
it
I
confirms
said,
Kate's point, yes.
sexiest man in the age of Trump. Thank you, Colin. And and let's face it, People Magazine, all the magazines, they want to sell, they want clicks, and this is what's working. And Idris Elba evidently wasn't going to make as many sales or get as many clicks from People Magazine customers, so they broke my heart.
No.
So, Jacques, you said that you traditionally do
Oh,
not.
poor Jacques. He's so dumbfounded. I so wish this was on
I-
television.
yeah,
Because I don't
yeah.
think he even knows what to say.
Well, no, I just had no idea about that with Blake Shelton and whether or not the thought of being beaten bloody by him makes him sexier or less sexy.
Yeah.
But it's. I mean, the thing is, I don't have a
Why,
problem.
Blake Shelton? Why?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go out and. But
Although
you
why
know,
Blake Shelton, why could mean several different things.
Yeah.
Including why
I
Blake
mean,
Shelton.
the thing is, like, people get upset about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. And I think Turnabout is fair play, and People Magazine want to objectify men, go for it. I have been
Except
known
they
to.
I think
don't.
I think
I've
they
been-
should
photos
have
are
to
so.
wear.
Huh?
I think they should have to wear a bathing suit.
Oh, I don't
women's
disagree.
bathing suit. I think
I
they
don't
should have to
disagree.
wear a bikini.
But the thing, I mean, some of them, you're like, I don't get it at all, and I mean, it's an excuse to sell issues, and I'm sure that they probably knew there was I don't know if they knew about the tweets, but I think that they knew that it would start a conversation and people would pay attention to their junky magazine.
Well, my guess is that this stuff is probably market researched pretty heavily and pretty much focus grouped as well. And I think they know what demographics they're going after at any given moment. Just for context, I will now read you all of the sexiest men alive ever. Mel Gibson once. There couldn't be a more problematic choice now than Mel Gibson. But this is before he was problematic. All right. So Mel Gibson once, before we knew, yes. Brad Pitt twice, Sean Connery, Channing Tatum, Harry Hamlin, Ben Affleck, George Clooney twice, Ryan Reynolds Dwayne Johnson, John F. Kennedy Jr., Johnny Depp twice, Matt Damon, Denzel Washington, Nick Nolte, Adam Levine. There you go. There you have your Sexiest.
That's an
Well,
awfully white list, except
yeah, and
for
Denzel
Denzel, and
and
he
The Rock.
is like
Yeah.
and
the
wasn't-
Obama of black actors. You know, like everybody loves him.
Yeah, and
but he is legit.
and I'm
handsome.
sure Blake Shelton and his people probably just could not stand the fact that Adam Levine got it
Right.
and Blake hadn't. So I'm
So
sure
who
there
would
was some
you-
deals.
Is Idris Elba your choice for Sexiest Man Alive?
Yeah, that's my choice.
I feel like Idris Elba is kind of the choice for everything these days. Like, I think he should be Batman. You think he should be
But
the sexiest
He's
man
Chief
alive.
Bogo in Zootopia.
But unfortunately, someone made the comment that Idris Elba was too street to play James Bond, or even to be considered.
Right.
Yeah.
But that person was denounced.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, that
Yes.
person was denounced.
That was Roger Moore, wasn't it?
I don't think it was Roger Moore. I think it was some producer or something.
Oh yeah, Roger Moore said basically the character was not written as black and therefore should not be played by a
Right.
black actor.
I mean, the truth is, I like Idris Elba a lot. I think he'd be kind of terrific as almost anything. I'd love to see him as James. I mean, I don't think the world would end if he was James Bond for 3
But
movies.
do you think he's world's sexiest?
Well, I don't
Who
think
would
I'm-
you pick,
I
Colin?
don't-
I don't think people's sexiest man alive is America's sexiest man alive. I
Yeah.
don't think it's worldwide sexy.
All right,
I mean,
yeah.
look at the list.
Look,
Right.
Jock, in answer
Yes.
to your question, I began my secret gay life with Rob Lowe. I'm going to end it that way.
Do you have someone, Tanisha? I feel like we owe the audience our
I have to
picks.
think on it. I couldn't come to it like that.
Gotcha.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Jesse
all right.
Williams?
We may have exhausted this topic. All right.
I'm
Jonathan
exhausted.
McNichol
Right.
is still my vote
So-
for sexiest man alive.
Yeah, we have maybe 4 minutes left, and we had a lot of different topics on the list. I don't know. I mean, I have actually been really fascinated this week by the sale of this Da Vinci painting for $450 million. $400 million is actually the price plus $50 million. I think is the commissions and fees and stuff like that.
taxes.
Tax and gratuity,
I don't know. Does anybody know? this?
postage and handling.
I mean, I think
we have
it's
time for hot
interesting as
takes,
like
basically.
a tax shelter. You know, I feel like it's like the new tax shelter for the super wealthy. Things are going crazy with the economies around the world. Throw your money into Da Vinci.
Well, Jacques, I have to ask you, as a former seminarian,
Yes.
this is a painting of Jesus. Wouldn't Jesus have said 22,000 children die of poverty every year? Don't spend $400 million on a painting of me?
Oh, you're such a bleeding heart, Colin.
But the thing is, you just know that whoever bought it wouldn't have given it to those kids anyway. It would have just gone into a yacht or something. I mean,
Real estate.
What kills me, of course, is that this will now be very likely in private hands and not able to be enjoyed or studied, or especially considering there's so few works of Da Vinci that are available to the public. And there's the thing.
Tiny.
Yeah, isn't it like 15 paintings
Right, and there's
worldwide that are
some
on
question
view?
about the authenticity of this one.
Yeah, which kind of is baffling for 450
Yeah,
million.
400,000. I feel $400 million. Yeah, it should be free and clear. Da Vinci.
Authenticated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, some questions about whether it had been painted over so much that it really didn't even have whatever its original luster was. I mean, even more than most paintings of that era, which got monkeyed around with
We
quite a
need
bit.
Dan Brown on this.
Right, exactly. He's been looking to get Da Vinci into a title one more time. All right, Kate, you have the last word on this if you want to, if you have a last word.
Well, I don't know. I wish I had seen it when it was on display because we may never see it again. So I'll have to get down to MoMA so I can see Michelangelo.
Right. Gather your Da Vinci's whilst you may, apparently. But I will say that there is a Trump angle to everything. So this thing belonged to a Russian oligarch.
Who
actually,
also has elephant trophies.
who also has elevator.
Throw it
who
all
has-
in.
Yeah. Who has?
Are we jumping to that?
Yeah, no, I don't think we have time for the elephants today. But yes, it
Once
belonged.
again, the elephants get the worst.
Was
of
bought
it.
from the bought from the trust, I think, of a Russian oligarch who also bought one of Donald Trump's mansions, I believe, or it was the other way around. So there's a Trump angle to absolutely everything. But yes, Jesus is watching you from that painting, saying you spent money on the wrong things. I'm an anti-poverty crusader. Didn't you get that part? All right, we have to take a break. We're going to have plenty of time though for endorsements or recommendations or re-endorsements. If you endorse something once and you want to endorse it again.
Things are getting worse every day. Things are getting worse.
Wow, is there a reliable liberal vote left in the Senate who has absolutely no chance of being caught up in some kind of tongue-kissing sex scandal? Yes, there is. Thank you, Dick Blumenthal. Today's show was produced by Jonathan McPants and me, Kyone Wolf. Amanda Fish sleeps underwater to avoid being groped. Our intern is Evan Sobel. The part of Bill Curry was played by Bob Packwood. On Monday's show, we'll be back with more weekend news madness on the Scramble. And now, back to Colin.
Yes, so we have time for a leisurely walk through our endorsements. We have 10 whole minutes to endorse things. So I hope you are eloquent in your endorsements. So who wants to begin? Go ahead, Kate. Why don't you kick
All
things
right.
off?
Well, one of the things I do is I wake up really early in the morning here on the East Coast, and
I love how this is starting.
and I listen to the BBC.
We don't have that much time.
All right. I listened to the BBC, and I learned that this coming Sunday, November 19th, is World Toilet Day at the UN. And it's set up to address the global sanitation crisis. But not only that, the fact that 4.5 billion people don't have access to facilities in their houses means that women, children, and the vulnerable are open to sexual assault. And so it's a very, very serious situation, and I'm glad to know about it. The other thing...
Could I just say one other thing?
Yeah.
I love the BBC so much, particularly if I wake up in the middle of the night, and I just turn the radio on, and they could be talking about, a plague of boils about to strike. It doesn't make any difference. I just feel like they got this.
Yes.
They just sound like they got this. We've been there. We know how to deal with this. I go right back to sleep feeling okay.
Yes. The other thing I really enjoyed reading this week was learning about the late gossip columnist Liz Smith. And when I think about what she went through, and as she said, she was not a Smith or Vassar girl. She was from Texas in the 50s. She worked a lot of different pieces of jobs and built it into a major career. And so I have renewed admiration for Liz Smith, and I hope people go online and check out her story and her interviews on NPR and PBS.
In fact, for some people, the people listening to the show at 1 o'clock, some of you may have heard at least part of an old Terry Gross interview with Liz Smith.
That was
which
good.
Was really good. And actually it kind of touches on some of the things we've been talking about here too. And it's just, she at one point was being asked about Rock Hudson, and she said, I don't out people. I've never outed people. I don't get that. I don't know why anybody in the world would ever do something like that. And she said also, I don't write about the celebrities' children either. And so, they're gossip columnists and they're gossip columnists. Yes, well, some people have them anyway. Go ahead, Jacques.
Well, I want to endorse something that's in the past. So sorry you can't go enjoy it. But Michelle Obama's appearance last night at the Bushnell, and a big shout out to the Bushnell and to Connecticut Forum for bringing her here. And it was an inspiring evening, funny evening. Made me regretful that she's no longer in the White House. Not that I wasn't already regretful, deeply regretful, but it was a really lovely, lovely evening with a very wise person, and I think everyone who was in attendance was better for being there. So I'm big shout out again to the Forum and the Bushnell for bringing her here. I want to endorse that people support local playwrights by going to see a new play at the Hole in the Wall Theater in New Britain by Bill Arnold, who is a very funny writer. And he has a play called School for Manners that's opening. I think first performance is tonight. And I know that the Hole in the Wall Theater can really use your support because they're a bit in arrears on their rent. So you can support a playwright who is local and support a theater that could use your dollars. So Hole in the Wall, I think their website's hitw.org.
Many years ago, we had sort of Jacques Lamar Nose Night at the Hole in the Wall. We all went out to Great Wall. in New Britain, and then,
Which I love.
which we loved, and then we all went and saw the evening of Jacques Lamar plays there. The whole as many nose people as we could rope together that night.
Yeah, it was
we had many.
And that was like my second production. They're really supportive of Connecticut playwrights, and there's not a lot of theaters in Connecticut that step up like that. And I'm very fortunate that Theater Works, where Tanisha is, Heartbeat Ensemble that Tanisha has been affiliated, has also done reading the a work that I did, and I think that that more of my fellow playwrights should be given the chance to step up.
All right. What have you got, Tanisha Dugan?
Well, when I was in my 20s working in corporate
really
America, I was doing marketing for a company. It was at the dawn of blogs, and I did a lot of research about mommy blogs. It was the dawn of mommy blogs, and we were trying to understand that market because the company I worked for engaged heavily with moms and their children. And in between looking at these mommy blogs, because I was not yet thinking about being a mom, I would sneak in Refinery 29. And so I'm endorsing Refinery 29 because since then, they have evolved to be a real sort of feminist place to go, and that kind of covers everything from at the time they were fashion and beauty, and that was really their scope. But they've expanded. They've got this incredible video collection called Shatterbox, which is focusing on 4 female directors, one of which is Gabby Sidibe, who takes Nina Simone's 4 Women and reimagines that into a short film. So they're just doing amazing things. I mean, and then really trivial fun things like, hey, Trader Joe's has got black truffle butter, so if you want to really make your family excited for the holidays on the cheap, pick up a tub of black truffle butter from Trader Joe's. So Refinery 29 is one of them. Another one is Caleb downstairs, who is so sweet and kind. He checks me in, and I come to this building a lot to do a lot of things, from Colin to pledges over on the TV side. And he made a suggestion about Thanksgiving for oxtails, which I subsequently texted my family. And during the show, got a cavalcade of text responses back because we want oxtails. And the question was, well, is that really Thanksgiving? And we're Jamaican. So, of course.
Yeah.
It's a Jamaican Thanksgiving. You must have oxtails. So thanks to Caleb and my loony family for bringing the oxtails home. And then finally, I was actually going to endorse you, my friend, Mr. Jacques Lamar,
thank you.
a local playwright. It has been my mission since coming back to Connecticut and working for these organizations to produce as much of local work as I can. And Jacques is coming back to us for Christmas, of course, Christmas on the Rocks. He's had the Charlie Brown piece, but he's blessing us with something new. So if you want to continue the holiday spirit and the giving and give to my friend and this prolific performer, playwright, buzz engineer, come check us out.
I'll continue with Jacques' retroactive tradition and endorse something that Tanisha endorsed a few weeks ago. Which I'm so sorry that I didn't get a chance to endorse it when it would be meaningful, which was The Wolves at Theater Works, which was directed by Eric Ord, who I had the good fortune to work with on our Faust piece for the symphony. And Eric just did this amazing job. It's a really, really hard play to direct, I think. It would be a hard play to direct. He did this kind of amazing job with it, and I just couldn't be more impressed by that. And as long as we're sort of on this theater jag, I'll quickly say that there's a thing that you can listen to as a podcast called Playing on the Air. It's produced by Claudia Catania, and it's you just get she gets top-ranked playwrights, often with like short little pieces that they've never really staged much anywhere, and also just world-class actors, and they do them kind of as audio plays. We're going to give you a little taste of that on the Friday after Thanksgiving in this time slot, my time slot. We're going to run one of the episodes of that just so you can get a little taste of what the show sounds like. And I asked that it be one that includes a play by Donald Margulies because he's down in New Haven and he listens to this show sometimes and all that kind of stuff. So and then I'll quickly endorse just something that maybe you can try out. Not everybody is raving about this, but I'm pretty drawn in by Alias Grace on Netflix. We certainly, Margaret Atwood is the person, just in the way that kind of Don DeLillo was the writer, really kind of saw 9/11 coming, I think. Like so much of his stuff kind of was very prescient about that. So much of her work, I think, is very prescient about the moment that we're in right now. Alias Grace is more of a period piece. It involves a woman, an Irish immigrant, imprisoned for murder. It has, for the most part, people you've never heard of, except for Anna Paquin. And I'm 4 episodes in, and I'm hooked. So if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, there you go.
Hitting on New Britain, Vernon, I already said that one. Avon, Farmington, yeah.